project started in 2007. A pilot was arranged called 100 Bikes at Mildura Primary School. So it actually all occurred over a cup of coffee. Myself, Rob McGlashan from PCP, and Karen Mudu, the principal at Mildura Primary School, were having a conversation about, at that time, that school, most of the children had to pay to get to school, and we thought that that was a barrier. So the discussion was talking about how do children get to school, particularly those that are affected most in poverty, and this particular school services the three largest public housing estates in Mildura. So we then just started talking about bikes, and I remember in our day when we rode bikes to school, and then that started a conversation with saying, well, these children don't have bikes and how expensive they are, and how positive role models. The children often in sole parent families didn't have positive male role models. So that's where it began at that moment. We said, well, what about if we do bikes up? And then Karen mentioned that, well, we could do that as part of the curriculum. So we left there, and within a couple of hours I went back to the office, and I was reasonably new to council, and I rang and I spoke to a couple of people and said, who looks after the tip? And then you quickly get corrected that it's the landfill. Rang up there and I said, well, we want to do some recycling. Have you got anywhere to store it? Well, we've got a shipping container. I'll have it cleaned out by Monday. So that happened within 3 days. We then were able to pick up some media, and we asked for bikes, and the school then applied to Best Start for a $5,000 grant for a term that would then fund a teacher to supervise the pilot. So that's how it started, and we started, I think it was 4th term in 2007 at Mildura Primary School. So to help matters on, Rob and myself, we circulated that to our colleagues, we booked out utes, and we drove around and collected bikes from people. We didn't know what it was back then or how important it was to the children. I still see those young people around now riding the bikes that they were doing in 2007. And those kids are now in high school. And they've still got the helmet, you see them around, it's just amazing. And we didn't know, but we were invited to put in for a tender. And it was Christmas 2007, I think it was even Christmas Eve, we were out collecting bikes in the rain, and we got the phone call to say that we've got the funding. So that led to the kids on bikes, and the rest to say is history. It was just such a simple idea over a grinder's coffee, it could get so well. Just that's what it was, just people fed off each other, and that's how it all happened. So we learned that we had to then have a coordinator, because we couldn't keep going out collecting bikes, because eventually our bosses will work out that what are we doing? Absolutely. And anyone who knows those three personalities know that we're an ideas people, and we couldn't see any barriers, and you know, the momentum grew very quickly. The moment that the guys from the landfill from Mildura Council said, yeah, no problems, mate, here's the key, we're like, oh my gosh, that was easy. And we kept thinking, well, where's the difficulty parts going to come in? Since that day in June 2007, the three of us have never met again. And thank goodness, I think the success of it also relates back to how it was managed at the school with that original teacher who knew things about bikes. Because originally they were pulling all the parts off it and stripping it way back, and it was just not cost effective. Because at that particular time there was a chap who was putting in an advert in the paper. He wanted to give bikes away to poor families, but that wasn't building any resilience. It wasn't building those skills, because what the school had passed on to us was the children that were having, first of all, the school developed a program on how the children were chosen. The young people had to write a letter to the school and explain why they needed to be the first children. And interestingly enough, they chose, there was more girls than boys initially, and a number of them had a number of behavioural problems. around attendance, around acceptance at the school, and they just grew. And the young Tongan lad had participated and had been working on his bike for the whole semester. And it was presentation day, and they're all there, and we just found out then he'd never ridden a bike. So here he is, he's got this bike that he's made up, and here's a couple of teachers supporting him on this bike. And this boy must have been 10. He'd never ridden a bike, he'd never owned one. And that sort of stuff makes you all warm and tingly. And the first batch of children that went through it, the young people went through it, I came out of the town library, which is a block away from that particular school, and there's the bikes all lined up. I think that was a big success.